Allies or Enemies by Peachiibunnii, Chapter 2. Scar scanned the building tops with his visor, squinting through the dim night. The orange tint made things easier to see in the night, acting almost like night vision since it brightened his surroundings. He idly tossed his bow from hand to hand, waiting. He was hoping nothing crazy was going to happen tonight. As far as he was aware, things seemed to be running smoothly. If he was lucky, tonight would go without any issues. He moved to stand up, his mechanical legs making a humming noise, the gears around his knees shifting as he stood. He slowly walked to the edge of the rooftop on the opposite side, scanning the rooftops and ground below for movement. He sighed, turning off his visor to see clearly, as much as he could anyway in the dark. It was a cool night with a light breeze beating against his arms and face from where he stood. He took a deep breath to enjoy it, letting his guard down for a moment. That was his first mistake. Almost as soon as he let his body relax, he heard what he could only assume to be a gun being fired in the distance. He whipped around to put his visor on, jumping off a ledge with little to no time to search for what had caused the noise. As he jumped, he saw an explosion and smoke light up not far from where he thought he heard the gun go off. His metal gear hummed and hissed as he ran, leaping and vaulting over a rooftop until he reached a crossroad that was, luckily, as empty as it could get. Aside from the pillar of smoke coming from the street and shining metal around the crater that was created moments before. There, he saw him, that damn vigilante that the city had been trying to catch. Scar paused briefly, crouching on the ledge to take in the scene. He squinted at what the anti-hero was fighting and gasped in horror when he realized what was going on. Quickly, he pulled an arrow from his quiver and pulled it back against his bowstring, breathing deeply before letting the arrow fly through the air. He held his breath as he let it go. It spiked one of the green mechanical beings between the eyes, seeming to have powered it down. Its red, glowing eyes powered off, and its body fell to the street. The city has yet to figure out what they were, but civilians and news reporters nicknamed the robots as creepers, something that would target human movement and explode on impact. Scar and the government of the Emerald City knew they were from the Undercity, but the city itself didn't need to know that. That'd only panic and outrage more against the mutants and hybrids living beneath them. The sandy-haired vigilante looked up, covering his eyes with his hand to get a bit of view. "Well, if it isn't so nice of you to join me," the man smiled gently. Exelqua, or Cute Guy, as news reporters nicknamed him, hopped onto the hood of a car and flew up to the roof, past Scar's reach, where he fluttered in the air above his head. "And here I thought you were going to be late to our date." Scar glared at the man in pink and sighed. He smiled nonetheless and lowered his bow to rest. "Well, I couldn't let you have all the fun. Someone has to protect you from the mass amount of police and military that's been hunting you down." Scott powered his visor off and smirked a little. Cute Guy frowned at that, lowering himself gently to stand on the ledge Skull was crouched on. "So sweet of you to be my all-powerful protector." He passed a little. "Hate to break it to you, pretty boy, but I'm a little more adequate in self-defense measures this time around." He reached for his gun on the holster of his thigh and pulled it out. It appeared to be a normal pistol, just at first glance, but knowing the people Cute Guy has on speed dial, it could be anything in his hand. "A fancy tiny gun! How cute!" Scar mumbled, turning back to look at the road where the creepers once were. He did a once-over glance at the ground before pulling his left arm closer, pressing his fingers to the thermal coating pads in the gloves on his forearm, showing the location to the police for them to pick up the remains of the robot to figure out where it came from. Him and everyone could continuously guess and assume it was from the Undercity, probably a crazed hybrid or mutant that wanted revenge on humans and normal society for outcasting them. Scar would never say it out loud, though. It was something the government would like to try and keep covered up for as long as they could anyway. In some aspects, Scar did feel bad. In others, though, it was his duty to protect the citizens of Emerald City, even if it meant having to be on the opposing side of a shunned minority for something being different. Exalqua's voice broke his train of thought. looking up to see the man pointing the gun at the street. Not just a cute gun, a gun that has a super-powered laser that fires a bullet that's considered to be a fragment of an atomic bomb. Cute guy giggled, gesturing to the array of shrewd metal and carnage along the sidewalks and scattered in the streets. Scar glanced around, frowning at the mess of the city, frowning at the mess the city would have to clean up. Why would you fire that, knowing it would blow up and cause a mess for others? Scar glared at the other before moving to finally stand up. Exelqua looked up at seeing the other now towering over him. He sighed as he leaned to the right, falling off the edge of the building before easily opening his wings to glide down and around the air in front of Scar in lazy circles. Relax, old man. It's not like the government is doing anything besides sitting around anyway. The least they could do is get out of their fancy tanks and clean up the streets. Scar scoffed at how inconsiderate the other was being. What's gotten into you? He finally asked. It was unlike the avian man to cause chaos and potentially put more people at risk. Blowing things up? Trash talking the government? Well, that's not out of the ordinary, Scar mumbled, but being inconsiderate to your people. My people? Guy asked, landing in front of Scar quick enough to make the other take a step back. Scar stumbled a little, realizing he messed up with his word choice. Though Scar was much taller, almost a foot, seeing the blonde this angry with his wings outstretched like this still scared him. Not because of real fear, but because he didn't want to upset the shorter. My people are below the ground because of your people, because someone didn't like us. One of your people? The shorter's wings were slightly raised, along with the small wings on his head. He stared into Hawkeye's eyes for a long moment before huffing, turning his head before storming off. He moved to take a step off the building. Wait, Scar found himself saying, making the avian stop. He didn't turn around though, just waited. I'm sorry. It's unfair for me to claim you as one of us. I shouldn't decide whose side you're on and whose you're choosing to defend, he sighed softly, waiting for the other to turn around, speak, or run away. Just because I protect your people doesn't mean I still like them. The man's wings lowered in a relaxed droop, as well as his shoulders. I don't hate humans, I just wish they were more accepting of us. It's not like we choose to be born with bird wings or fish scales. Yet, because we have powers and are clearly different, we get banned. It's not fair. The man still refused to turn around. I know. That's why you do what you do. You want to prove others can be good and help. You know that's why the people love you. They do see you as a hero, Scar began. Save your breath. Exalco waved his hand over his shoulder. His tone wasn't from anger or annoyance. He just seemed tired. I already know they see me as a hero, but that isn't enough. I need them to see me as good enough to live in their society. Zelka, Scar frowned, taking a step forward. Yukai turned his head quickly, but not because of Scar. A horrified scream and another explosion 2 streets down. The scream muffled after the sound of rocks and rubble being tossed around easily. Scar was already looking in that direction before he turned to look back at Exelqua. He nodded and powered his visor on before booking it across the rooftop, kicking off the edge of one of the buildings to leap to the other. Overhead, he easily saw the bird hybrid flying over his head, diving to the streets beyond Scar's line of sight. Once Scar reached the ledge, skidding to a halt as to not fall, he saw who had made the scream. A woman walking along the sidewalk, hiding behind a car. On the other side, a fresh, massive hole in the road, from what everyone can undoubtedly assume was made by a creeper. Hawkeye glanced around, not seeing any more, only seeing the explosion hole and his somewhat friend sidekick helping the woman to her feet. She looked dazed and a little scared, but the anti-hero seemed to have handled the situation well. He scanned the area briefly, unsure if any more robotic creatures would come out of nowhere, or if something new would be released on their poor city. Scar raised his arm again to send the location to the police, before spotting lights in the distance. He raised himself to his feet and gestured to Exelqua, waving for him to fly up to the roof. Yukai noticed the gesture and moved to fly up. freezing up at something under a tree that Hawkeye couldn't see. Scar squinted with his visor, gritting his teeth in a cringe. He saw what Exelka was looking at, a tall, skinny, bone-like black creature crawling towards Hawkeye. Hawkeye wasted no time, reaching for an arrow to point at the creature. Hawkeye saw and tore his gaze from the creature, shouting in disbelief. "What are you doing?" he screamed. By that time, the cops had arrived and called something Exelka wasn't entirely paying attention to. Scar turned to see the cops getting out of their car and back to Hawkeye on the ground. When Scar looked back where the creature was, it was gone? Scar blinked, lowering his bow in confusion. He could have sworn it was there a split second ago. He looked back to Exelka, seeing the blonde pointing his gun directly at him. Scar blinked and the gun had gone off. There was no reaction time. He couldn't move. He shut his eyes, and to his surprise, nothing happened. He could hear screaming from the police and more gunshots, but when he opened his eyes, it was only because someone was shoving him in his chest. He fell back and landed on the ground with Hawkeye. Seeing him landing on the ledge, his boots gently squeaking on the flat cement ledge with how fast he landed. They were both quiet, but only because Exelka looked angry and Scar was confused. "What were you thinking?" Exelka tore into him, pointing to the monster that was slowly deteriorating and turning to a purple mist on the ground. Scar glanced behind him, seeing said creature from before, dead on the ground behind him. "You could have died! You could have gotten me hurt!" Exelka was getting sappy, but seemed to slow down when Scar didn't react to his anger. "Do you have any clue what you were fighting?" He sounded bitter as he walked further into the rooftop, past Scar and closer to the creature. Scar liked his gentle tone more. He smiled and shook his head. "No, I've never seen this before." He chose his words, not wanting to insult the creature if it would upset the blonde. Scar moved to stand on finally, walking slowly to stand beside the avian. "I've got so used to the giant spiders and creepers, but this one is new." Scar glanced at the few particles left over before looking into Exelka's eyes. "But you know what it is," he stated. "A fact." Exelka looked at Scar in the eyes, his purple eyes flashing in the night, before looking back at the mist, gently walking through it to step on the ledge. "Do not fly away from me right now. You know something." Hawkeye glared in anger, his fists tightening at his sides. "Please." He began softer, wanting nothing more to learn so he could help the city. "Tell me. I just want to keep people safe." Zelka sighed and lowered his wings before turning to look at Scar. "They're up in the underground. We call them Endermen. We're not sure where they came from to be exact, but they're not from the underground. They don't really bother us, but they come up every once in a while. We don't know what they are, but I know enough about their behavior. Never look them in the eyes unless you're ready to kill one. They can teleport, and they move things around. Cars, small objects, nothing crazy like buildings or people, but anything they can pick up and move, they will. They do it to show their presence, but it's just their way of luring people to kill, and..." Zelka shrugged. "They won't hurt you if you don't look them in the eyes, but if you do, there's no escaping them." Scar was horrified, to say the least. Knowing something like this was roaming his cities and potentially killing people. Scar swallowed and turned to see the cops comforting the woman from before, his eyes widening once he remembered. "They shot at you!" Scar whisper screamed. Exelka's eyes widened in confusion as the other rushed to his side. He came up to Exelka, taking his shoulders in his hands. "Did they hurt you?" he asked, trailing his arms to the blonde's elbow. Hugo's wings were gently flapping, blinking in rapid confusion. He paused and glanced down, taking note of himself. I don't think so," he asked, confused as to why the other was so concerned. I'm fine," he said softly, letting his wings rest entirely. Scar sighed softly. gently letting the other go. Good, he mumbled, clearing his throat before turning his head. He realized how sudden and embarrassing his outburst must have seemed. You should probably get out of here before they notice you're up here, Hawkeye sighed, gesturing to the red and blue lights below them. Kyukai pouted, leaning closer. Oh, don't want to get your boyfriend arrested? He teased, before setting his hand on Hawkeye's chest. So caring of you, he giggled, pulling away once another set of lights started approaching the street they stood above. If Exelqua noticed the blush of Scar's cheeks, he chose to keep it a secret. Kyukai moved to the ledge again before crouching down, watching them from above. What exactly are they going to do now that it's over, though? Kyukai asked, looking up at Scar. It's not like there's anyone to even catch. There might be if you stick around, Scar laughed before stepping closer to the ledge to stand beside him, moving to crouch with him. He glanced at the other's lax wings and tilted his head a moment before looking back over the scene with Exelqua. Nah, they could never catch me, Kyukai smiled, the lights shining down on his face and glasses himself. You're hurt. You're hurt, Scar blurted out, staring at the avian's wings once again. He frowned, having been lied to by the other. A small portion was tousled and messy, but no visible blood was showing. Scar reached for his wing, only for it to be flipped upwards as soon as Scar came close to touching it. Yukai glanced at him, body curling further against the ground. Do not touch me, he mumbled, before moving to stand. I'm fine. They're just a little loose, but nothing painful, he explained. Scar noticed, moving to stand himself. I'm sorry. Did the comment from earlier? Scar trailed off, unsure how to word his phrase. Am I still angry? Kyugai asked. Bingo. He glanced below them before shaking his head. No, I don't think so anyway, he sighed. Just stressed lately. He opened up just slightly. Something he'd never really done before. The only things he'd ever mentioned was that he did live a civilian life and hid his identity. He had a weapon supplier and he hated the government, but that's all Scar's ever been able to pull from him, even in the years they've seen each other. Do you want to talk about it? Scar asked, offering a gateway in. To what? He had no clue. Yuko seemed to hesitate, staring at the cars that were making his face light up blue and red. It was making his purple eyes shift between light and dark, causing Scar's eyesight to be slightly disorientated. No, I can't tell you anything, he decided to land on before sighing. You're right, I should go before someone spots me hidden back here. Hawkeye cursed himself. Get him safe, wherever home is. Scar chuckled before reaching to take the blonde's wrist before he got too far away. Hey, Exelqua turned to look at the other, glancing at their hands. There he is, a third voice called from below them. He's still up there? Shit, Exelqua panicked, doing the only thing he could think of in the moment. He shoved the other off him and gave him an apologetic glance before turning on his heel to run to the edge. He used the small lip of the building to jump into the air and fly off, not glancing back as he dipped below more buildings, seemingly to avoid being caught above the rooftops again. Scar sighed, glancing back down to the street before shaking his head at the officer. The man looked frustrated inside himself, going back to look at the hole. Scar did as well before taking one last glance around the building's corner to see if the guy really was gone. He stretched inside, putting his visor on once again to make another round. Okay, that was chapter 2. Okay, things are gonna fall apparently. Um, that was fun. I really, really liked this series, honestly. I need to drink more water again. I hate human functions. Anyway, I love this fic so much. I like that we got to see the superhero side of them this time. Like last chapter, we got to see how they interact as friends in, I wouldn't say real life because they're still real life, but like, civilian life. There we go, that's the wording of it. Yeah. Chapter 1, we got to see their civilian personas play out, and we got to see their superhero personas play. Oh, Is it superhero? Pretty much. Superhero, anti-hero, same difference. Pretty totally. Uh, but yeah, it's fun. I also fully thought I wouldn't be able to pronounce Exelqua. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Um, but it's fun to say. I will admit that. Anyway, I love these characters so much. They're so fun. I will see you guys in the next video. If you tell me what you think in the comments. I love hearing you guys' thoughts. Seriously. Please tell me your thoughts. I don't have any pennies, but like a penny for your thoughts. Except I don't have pennies. um anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. If you have any recommendations, put them in the comments as well. Just fill the comments up. I like seeing what people say. It's like genuinely the best. Okay, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.